What helps one person cope better than another when a stressful situation happens? Why do some people experience long-lasting effects from a traumatic event or very stressful event when someone else seems to cope with it easily or get through it more quickly? Have you ever wondered that? There is a fundamental difference in how people respond to life events based on a variety of factors. However, today we are looking at something called resiliency factors or protective factors. These are elements of mental health that help us become more resilient or be more resilient in a life-altering event or stressful situations, and even protect us from current and ongoing effects from those events. People can go through similar situations, and one person ends up with PTSD and another one doesn't. When we worked at the ranch, long story there, place where we fostered and we had up to 12 children in our home. We didn't own the ranch, we lived there. I was owned by a foster agency. We lived there for 14 months. When we went there, everybody who went, including my husband and I and our children and other couples that lived at this facility, had different nervous systems, different backgrounds, different filters and experiences that impacted how they were able to cope with the stress and mitigate the level of stress that we encountered. Now, overall, the level of stress was beyond anything that I could have ever imagined personally. However, the way that we each responded to that was a little bit different. After the ranch, I wanted to heal and grow, not just from the events that happened there, but from the things that were underneath, that were lying inside of me that made it more painful in some situations and more challenging for my nervous system to manage. Some of the areas of growth that I focused on are those areas that I would call resiliency factors and protective factors. They are areas that helped me heal, and because I've worked in those areas personally, my nervous system has shifted so much. My ability to navigate different stressful situations is different than it was before, partially because of life circumstances and partially because of the work that has been done in my mind, body, and spirit. I want to offer an overview of what some of those factors are today. I'm going in further depth in the Growing You community because some of the teaching videos and the group calls that we have go over concepts that are part of this. My passion as a trauma therapist and a growth coach is to help people experience healing that is very practical and experiential and changes things in their body, their mind, and their hearts so that they can develop who they are and show up in the world as the person they are designed to be, a fully alive version of that person. And to do that, we are growing in various areas. Sometimes we're looking at specific ways that are not working for us, patterns of communication, patterns of challenge and struggle, for example, setting limits or how we identify our needs in relationships. I also offer teaching and opportunities for members to experience, beyond just learning, to experience changes in their body through different means that are helpful for overall mental health, emotional health, and spiritual health. Let's cover what these 5 categories are that I pulled together. When you look up these factors online and look at the research, you'll find a lot of different information and ways of grouping factors together that are part of this whole picture of what ultimately helps us be emotionally healthy and be protected from other stressors in life. I've pulled these together in 5 main categories, and each category includes a lot. There's a lot of information there, but what's more important is not only knowing what they are, but having the opportunity to engage in those areas where you need it. And that's part of the reason I love the Growing You membership, so that we can explore them personally and actually have opportunities in the group to practice them. Let's go ahead and discuss what those 5 categories are. Number 1, connection. Connection includes several different factors. It includes our social support systems. Who's around us when things happen? Who is not only around us, but present with us in the emotions and the experience that we've had. You can be present physically with a lot of people and have it not be much of a protective factor for you in a stressful event if those people are negating your experience, ignoring you, and dismissing you. That's actually going to cause further harm. In some cases, in our church environments, we experience secondary harm, even from well-meaning people, because we've just been through something really painful and people don't know how to respond, or their natural response is to try to fix everything. And so there's a lot of denial that'll happen. They're not connecting with us. Connection through social supports includes people who validate that your experience was real, that it makes sense that you'd have all kinds of different emotions, that your thoughts are your thoughts. It is where you are right now. It is somebody who's with you as you are in the moment and not trying to force you in that moment to already be healed, to be someone else, to be in a different space. Connection is witness. In the social support systems, we also have people who provide for our physical needs, who provide space for us to cry or scream or whatever it is. Sometimes highly emotional, highly stressful events will naturally have a lot of emotion that goes with it. And sometimes physical responses that our body feels the need to do. It is part of that trauma and overwhelm. If our body wants to run, if it needs to just move our hands or kick our feet sometimes. Have you ever done that? When you've had a lot of anger, kind of thrown like almost like a little temper tantrum, it's a sign that your body needs some kind of release. So the social support systems can look like a lot of different things. It could be our family, it can be our friends, it can be the church group that we're with, it can be support groups, Celebrate Recovery, Grief Share, different support groups that are out there where you can have space to simply share. For example, in Celebrate Recovery, you're sharing for 3 to 5 minutes at the most, and there's not a lot of feedback, so the support is different. It's more about having that place to process and be accepted and not corrected when you're sharing or given a resource or given something to do or how to fix it. It's just an opportunity to share, to process. We also need other kinds of support. Therapy is a great support where you have that space and it is about you processing. You have another person who's working with you. And as a therapist personally, the way that I work with clients is to not just be there to listen, but that the way that I'm with someone and the way that I engage with them is actually very intentional to help their brains and their bodies have the kind of experiences it needs to heal, to bring calm into the body, to work through the trauma, and to do different things that ultimately bring healing. So the social support systems include people who care. A lot of people that I work with as a therapist and as a coach are lacking very strong social support systems. So it's no wonder that things that they are going through, as difficult as they are probably feeling even more pronounced because they don't have that. My hope and prayer is that more people do reach out and that we as the body of believers learn how to provide witness with other people so that we can reduce that sense of loneliness, bring witness in the faith communities, and improve social support systems overall. Now, this is just one piece of connection. Like I said, there's a lot here. So I'm probably going to need to go a little bit faster so that I can get through some of this. Okay, in connection is also spirituality, our connection with God. When we've been through difficult life events, it may feel like God is very distant, God doesn't care. All kinds of different things happen in the way that we respond to that. But ultimately, it is a resiliency factor when we can cry out to God and be honest to God, make space to simply hear from God, utter the prayer. Sometimes in my darkest place, I could barely get out the word Jesus. And I knew that the Holy Spirit interprets our prayers, and speaking Jesus was enough. God knew. It was all I could do. I needed that connection, and that was very helpful for me as well. Reading through the Psalms and listening to different music that helped me connect to God's Spirit. Connection also includes our connection to self. Connecting to self includes an awareness of what's happening within us, awareness of what our needs are, awareness of the emotions that are happening, and ultimately not discounting them all. We may not know what our needs are. We may not know the answer to any of those questions. When trauma is heightened in your brain, it is very difficult to think clearly and to know what's going on, what you're thinking or feeling, and especially to know what your needs are. So you may not have that information, but starting to connect to that, turning toward that and allowing space for you to identify that. Could be through journaling, could be just through talking and processing with someone else, or talking out loud, or allowing silence and reflection opportunities during the day. Take a walk with no noise so that you can start to become aware of what's my heartbeat? What's my pacing of breathing? We're just bringing connection to what's going on inside of ourselves. So that's the main area of connection. The second category is capacity. Capacity is a word I use a lot with my clients because the way that I view part of growth and healing in general is that we are gaining capacity to be able to think through the things that matter to us, to make decisions that we want to make, to experience emotions that kind of flow, that come and go, don't get really stuck, don't become overly heavy, and thoughts that don't ruminate. We're gaining capacity to live in the core of who we're designed to be. Sometimes we are saying negative things to ourselves about a way that we've responded or our inability to do something, when the reality is we just don't have the capacity. We may have said yes to too many things, and we just don't have the time, the energy, or the space to do the thing that we said that we were going to do that was part of 100 other things. We may think that we have all the energy in the world to do a perfect and ideal view of our day every single day and the year as we plan out the year or plan out months ahead. But that doesn't take into account many other factors. What is the reality of my capacity physically, emotionally, spiritually, relationally? How am I drained? How is my capacity drained by different life events, or maybe ways that my body is impacted by food, by stress, by not sleeping well, etc. Capacity also includes our nervous system's ability to regulate, to come back down to calm when needed. For example, if you've had a stressful incident, then your nervous system starts to get revved up a little bit. Now, when your nervous system is in a healthy place and you have good regulation happening, then it can have the response, oh, wait, that was kind of freaky, that was stressful, whatever, and then your nervous system comes back down. Okay, now I'm calm again, and it goes back and forth and it ebbs easily. When you've had a lot of other stressful events, the slightest thing can set your emotions off, your nervous system off, your alarm signals in your brain are going bing, 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 bing. The way that I experienced that after the ranch was it felt like my nerves were going to snap out of my body at any point. There was not very much room in the window of where my nervous system could go, where my capacity was so depleted that if I heard one of my kids suddenly raise their voice in laughter or somebody dropped something, my whole body went, and it just had this instantaneous reaction. And it wasn't something that I thought about doing, and it wasn't about me needing to just realize it's not that big of a deal or anything like that. No, that is a nervous system response. As healing progressed, I had more capacity. Now, when it comes to protective factors for going through life stressors and significant events, capacity, it also includes that emotional capacity that I talked about, the nervous system level that you're at. Is it highly charged all the time, or are you able to move back and forth through, alarms that go off like something sudden happens and then move back into a calm area? But it also includes your skill set and the capacity that you have knowledge-wise to get through different things. An example that is used in one of the trauma trainings, I can't remember if it was an audio training that I did or maybe the book by Bessel van der Kolk, The Body Keeps a Score, But it was an example saying that if you are driving along a highway and suddenly somebody, moves in front of you really fast and you have a reaction, you don't have the skills and the training necessary in advance to maneuver that as well as someone who does have the skills. A NASCAR driver who is maybe gone through some flips and disasters around a track, somebody who has trained how to move their body, what they need to do in different events, is more able and capable of navigating that situation than somebody who isn't. And so just that difference alone is going to impact the capacity that you have to deal with that particular event. If you have a car crash, for example. Now, when we put all these resilience factors and these protective factors together, let's say there is a car accident event. If you have a social support system, even if it's people that you don't know who are supporting you and helping you process, allowing you space to breathe and process through some of the things, that is going to have a huge impact on your ability to work through the stress that just happened to your mind and body versus someone who is isolated, someone whose experience is immediately dismissed, and if they're told, just shake it off, pretend like it didn't happen, go along with your day, it doesn't allow space for what's actually there to be worked through. And then that person is more vulnerable to additional impacts from stress and other situations in the future. Capacity is also our physical ability to navigate through stressful situations and to cope well with them. If you're sleep deprived, if you're nutrition deprived, if your body is working through illness or disease of some kind, you're going to have less physical capacity to do what you need to do, to be able to make decisions that you want to make, to have the energy to cope with whatever you need to cope with. So capacity is one area that when I'm working with clients, we are developing. We're increasing capacity through different skills and through the work that we're doing so that we're increasing capacity emotionally, relationally, physically. I like to take a holistic approach and explore these different areas in someone's life so that we are providing as much space as possible for the healing and also for the experiences that are growth in your life. Speaking of your life, number 3 is purpose and personhood. I kind of put these together because purpose has a lot to do with something that is very personal, and personhood includes our sense of self and the way that we develop ourselves in the world. The view that we have about who we are and our place in the world and how God sees us, these are all part of that category of personhood and purpose. As a believer, we may believe that God has a purpose for us and we have to figure out what that exact purpose is. But if we're not connected to feeling like we have a sense of purpose, then we may be feeling more burdened by the fact that we think, God has a purpose for us because now we have to figure it out and it's all upon us, etc. But a purpose can also be, I'm exploring my gifts. I'm exploring the things that I enjoy, the things that I'm good at, the things that I need to develop in my life. I'm exploring the open doors and opportunities that are available to me because maybe I don't even know that there's skill sets I could use in that place. I'm exploring how God wants to use what's unique to me in the world, whether it's how I work with other people or something that I offer to the world. And a sense of purpose can also include that sense of belonging. I belong here. I belong as a child of God. I belong with a community of people. When we have a sense of belonging, we have a sense of purpose. We are part of something that is bigger than ourselves. Going back to the personhood aspect, this includes what I mentioned before, exploring and using your gifts. It also includes defining who we are as a unique person, as someone who is different than other people, who has different thoughts, which is okay. Different feelings, emotions, different filters for how we perceive the world, how we perceive what people are saying to us. When people use words and then you add facial expressions, it carries meaning. And each of us have different filters that process the meaning in different ways. Now, our past can affect that, and also our unique design, personality structure can affect that. So, purpose and personhood is exploring that, is developing that, so that you can be who God designed you to be as part of the bigger picture of God's design for His creation. So let's go to number 4, psychological flexibility. Woo, that's a mouthful. Psychological flexibility. What does that mean? I put several things into this place as well. This flexibility includes being able to live in the present moment without being consumed with what has happened in the past or consumed with what you expect to happen in the future. You can live in the present as it is, noticing what's happened in the past, noticing what could be in the future, holding that loosely, but living in the present. It also includes facing the reality of what is as it is. This idea of looking to the future and expecting that it's going to look a certain way starts to bring rigidity to our thinking processes, and it is not psychological flexibility. The rigidity of expecting, for example, if I do this, God's going to do that, and I'm going to get this, can lead us into a very rigid place that makes it difficult to heal, difficult to grow. I see people feeling very stuck in this place because A plus B should equal C, and that's just the way it is. Even if their minds know otherwise, there can be something inside of us that makes that more rigid. So psychological flexibility includes facing, okay, it just isn't that way. That means I may have to accept that I don't get what I want, what I believe I should get. I don't get the outcome. But what is what is. And when we face the reality of what is today, we face the present, we're in a position to experiencing something good and new. Because if we don't even know what that is, we can't get to something new. If we're denying what's right in front of us, or what is part of the world that we're in, our circumstances, our emotional state, our financial situation, our relationships, if we're denying critical pieces of that, then we're just setting ourselves up for ongoing heartbreak and hitting a wall over and over and over again. And as difficult as it can be to face some of those realities, it is a place of growth and opportunity. So going back to capacity and the skills, this is one of the things I like to do with clients in building that capacity so that you can work through the discomfort, the tension, the unknown, and learn that your nervous system, your mind, your body, your spirit, you will get through it. And as believers, we also have the knowledge that God will be with us, that He can provide for us, and we can lean into a process that is a faith-filled process, not knowing how is God going to provide, what if God doesn't do X, Y, and Z, but will God still be there for me as I face the reality of what is, so that I can make decisions that help me move forward. So psychological flexibility also includes being able to identify and work through the tension when things are not all or nothing. The rigidity comes when we expect things to be all good or it's all bad. And this can happen in relationships. I'll give you an example. Sometimes, let's say someone meets someone new and that person is saying all the right things, doing all the right things. Everything they've done is wonderful and excellent. And so you meet that person and everything is good. It's all good about them. But someone who has a lack of psychological flexibility, where there's a lot of rigidity, possibly due to trauma, due to past experiences, etc., it's much more difficult to deal with when that person does something that you don't like, or that doesn't feel good, or that hits a trigger inside of you that you're sensitive to, or is rude. Now, that person who was all good can be all bad. For some people, it can go to these extreme ends. For some of us, it's maybe not as extreme, but there's a lot of areas in life where we start to look at things and we're really leaning in towards all good or all bad. We could look at job opportunities. Nope, that's all bad. That everything about that is bad, or everything about this is perfect and great, when the reality is there's always a mix. Another way this kind of splitting happens is in the divisiveness about our way versus another person's way, and how we get really, really rigid. It is all about this one thing, is all about my way of thinking, versus identifying this is my way of thinking, and others may be different. I may disagree with it, but can I listen to some of what they say? Is there room for maybe a compromise or adjustment to some degree? But when there's 100% rigidity of, I know all the things, I have it all right, you are the person who needs to hear from me, you can even hear how that's very rigid, and it makes it very difficult to not only connect with other people, but it is also kind of taxing on the brain. You are not moving into a flexible place where you can receive from God, receive correction where needed. We can still hold our ground on things and ideals and values that we believe are true, with space to meet other people and to be able to be with others, and to have some room for that tension of areas that may not be 100% clear, or that we're not sure of, that we haven't figured out, we don't have solutions to, for example. Another couple of things that I would include in the psychological flexibility is a sense of curiosity, just being curious. If you think you have it all right, you can't be curious. There's nothing to be curious about. If you really are sure about your beliefs and values, that's great. But could you be curious about why someone else thinks, acts, or behaves the way that they do? Be curious about why yours are as strong as they are. And be curious about what's happening inside of you if somebody has a different opinion. Are you feeling threatened in some way? And I don't think a lot of people would answer that with being able to say, yes, I feel threatened, because it's not kind of the language that most of us would use. But our nervous systems can act in a way that basically indicate a sense of threat when we become really defensive or reactive to someone having a different opinion, for example. Okay, let's move on to category number 5. And I call this one physical care. So this is an area that's going to help us be more resilient. And I touched on this with capacity, but it includes the basic things that we've probably heard a bazillion times: exercise, physical activity, getting outdoors, getting some fresh air, different perspective outdoors, being in nature, changes in environment. Even if it's not all outdoors, if you go somewhere different, you have a change in environment, it affects your physical well-being. Maybe you go to a coffee shop one day a week, or a library, or a place where you're just seeing people, you go on a path and a walk, you're changing up your environment. That's going to help with shifts in perspective and just even how your body is responding to the world around you. Nutrition, of course, is a big factor. The things that we eat, how does that affect our body? Whether we're sick or we're struggling with illnesses, this is areas where we need physical care. Our sleep, all of these are aspects that affect our overall ability to be mentally healthy, to be emotionally healthy, spiritually healthy, because they affect every area of our lives. Now, 2 things that I'm including in here that maybe aren't as common as hearing about exercise and nutrition and sleep. Of course, water, drinking your water, that's usually included in those as well. But the 2 that I would add are play and laughter. Play, just being playful, playing games, playful activities, recreational activities. Maybe it's a sport, maybe it's not, maybe it's something just playful with a friend, and laughter. looking at funny reels and memes. And I'm not talking about scrolling all day and disconnecting from yourself, and that's kind of the way that you do it. But some level of it, the laughter, the play, these are very, very, very important in giving ourselves more capacity, giving our brain and bodies breathing room. And I think of them as an act of grace, an act of allowing ourselves space to simply be and to take in something different, especially when you are going through all kinds of stressful situations or you've just been through a very stressful season. Play gives your body and your brain an opportunity to take in something good and to take a break from the overwhelming emotions, the thoughts, and the experiences. And it is a factor that helps your body create more of that ebb and flow and resiliency overall. I would love to hear from each of you, if you put in the comments below, what stood out to you the most? Is there one of these that you feel like has been an area of life that has helped you get through stressful situations? And is there one of these that may be helpful for you today to navigate stress that you've been through or to protect yourself from future stress because you have an opportunity to build it up, such as playful engagement? Maybe you can increase mindfulness skills and breathing skills that help you regulate your nervous system. Maybe you find ways to connect with other people through, even if it's not a support group, it can be different gatherings for painting or hiking or something like that. Is there any of these 5 categories or any of the examples that I gave something that you think would be helpful for you in the near future? I'd love to hear. I'd love to know what stands out for you. And if you'd like to receive more guidance and continue on a journey where you're not only reminded of some of these things, but you're getting additional learning and skill exercise opportunities in a group, come on over and check out Growing You. We'd love to have you there. If there's a wait list, make sure you get on the wait list so that you get notified when the doors are open and become part of our membership community. If you have any questions, let me know. Take care.